The keys are going to be compassion, community, faith, whatever that faith looks like, love. That's it. That's all that matters.
Melissa Gilbert was once one of the most famous child stars in America. At just 9 years old, she became a television icon after playing Laura Ingalls in Little House on the Prairie. Millions of viewers saw a brave, warm-hearted girl growing up in a loving frontier family. That image turned Melissa into a defining face of childhood for an entire generation. But behind that perfect image was a very different life. Melissa was abandoned by her biological parents at birth. Her adoptive father died when she was only 11. As she grew up in Hollywood, she faced intense fame pressure, alcohol abuse, financial crises, and multiple broken marriages. For years, almost no one knew these stories. They remained hidden behind the familiar image of the Prairie girl. Now, in her 60s, Melissa Gilbert has finally revealed the truth about her life. And the story behind the fame is far more shocking than most people ever imagined. Childhood and an unstable family, 1964 to 1976. Melissa Gilbert was born on May 8, 1964, in Los Angeles, California, shortly after her birth. Her biological parents placed her for adoption. She was adopted by Paul Gilbert and Barbara Crane. Paul Gilbert worked as a comedian and actor. Barbara Crane was a dancer and actress. The couple raised Melissa in the entertainment environment of Los Angeles, even in early childhood. Adoption shaped Melissa's emotional life. In her memoir, Prairie Tale, she later wrote that she often felt as if she was always searching for stability. She did not fully understand the circumstances of her adoption when she was young, but the feeling of abandonment remained in the background of her childhood. The family situation became unstable in 1970. That year, Paul Gilbert and Barbara Crane divorced. Melissa was 6 years old. The separation changed her daily life. After the divorce, she mainly lived with her mother. Barbara remarried several times during the following years. Each new marriage changed the structure of the household. These repeated changes created a confusing environment for a child. Melissa later described those years as emotionally difficult. Different stepfathers entered and left the family. Household rules and expectations changed often. For a young child, stability was rare. This situation increased Melissa's early fear of loneliness. The most devastating loss happened in 1976. Paul Gilbert died that year when Melissa was 11 years old. At the time, the family told her that he had died from a stroke. For years, Melissa believed that explanation. Later, she learned the truth. Paul Gilbert had taken his own life. According to later accounts, he had suffered from severe chronic pain related to injuries and long-term health problems. The suicide deeply shocked Melissa when she eventually discovered the real cause. In interviews and in her memoir, she explained how strongly the news affected her. When she first learned the truth, she said she could not function normally for weeks. The realization forced her to reinterpret a major part of her childhood. It also created lasting emotional trauma connected to loss and secrecy. Her relationship with her mother also became complicated over time. Melissa later suggested that family stories were sometimes changed or softened when told to her as a child. As an adult, she began to question many details about her early life. This created tension between mother and daughter. The emotional impact of these events stayed with Melissa for years. Loss, instability, and hidden truths became recurring themes in her life. Psychologically, the experience shaped how she approached relationships and personal security. During this same period, acting began to play a larger role in her life. Melissa started appearing in commercials and television auditions as a child. The work provided structure and attention that she often did not feel at home. Acting also offered a way to focus on something outside the emotional tension in her family. By the early 1970s, performance had already become a central part of Melissa Gilbert's life. What began as childhood acting would soon turn into a major television career, but the emotional experiences of her early years, abandonment, divorce, and the loss of her father, had already left a lasting mark on her development. The pressure of early fame and career, 1974 to 1991. In 1974, at the age of 9, Melissa Gilbert received the role that would define her childhood. She was cast as Laura Ingalls in the television series Little House on the Prairie. The show premiered on NBC in September 1974 and quickly became one of the most popular family dramas on American television. The series ran for 9 seasons, ending in 1983. During that time, millions of viewers watched Melissa grow up on screen. The role brought her fame, financial stability, and national recognition before she turned 15. But the success also created intense pressure. Melissa worked long filming hours during her childhood. Production schedules often lasted 10 to 12 hours a day, while other children spent afternoons at school or playing with friends. Melissa spent most of her time on set memorizing lines and filming scenes. Growing up in front of cameras also meant that many personal experiences happened publicly. At age 15, Melissa filmed her first on-screen romantic scene with Dean Butler, who played Almanzo Wilder in the series. The scene involved her first on-screen kiss. According to Melissa, the moment felt uncomfortable and emotionally confusing because she was still a teenager while performing adult storylines. Despite these challenges, the public image of Laura Ingalls remained perfect. The character represented kindness, courage, and family values. Melissa had to maintain that image while dealing with her own private struggles during her teenage years. The pressure began to show. Melissa later admitted that she started drinking alcohol at a young age. By her late teens, alcohol use had become frequent. She also experimented with drugs and became emotionally dependent on romantic relationships. In her memoir, Melissa described several incidents that reflected her loss of control during that period. One night, after heavy drinking, she woke up inside a doghouse outside a home where she had been partying. The event became one of the examples she later used to illustrate how chaotic her personal life had become, while Melissa struggled privately. One person remained an important source of support: Michael Landon. Landon played Charles Ingalls, Laura's father, on Little House on the Prairie. Off-screen, he also acted as a mentor and protective figure for Melissa. He guided her professionally and often offered advice about the television industry. The relationship between the two became deeply personal. Melissa later described Landon as a father figure during a period when she still struggled with the loss of her adoptive father. In April 1991, Michael Landon publicly announced that he had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The disease progressed rapidly. He died on July 1, 1991, at the age of 54. For Melissa, the loss was devastating. She later described his death as one of the most painful moments of her life. Losing Landon meant losing both a mentor and a major emotional support system. At the same time, Melissa faced another challenge: life after Little House on the Prairie. The series had defined her identity for nearly a decade. After it ended, she struggled to find roles that matched the success of her childhood career. Many casting directors continued to see her only as Laura Ingalls. Several television projects and acting opportunities failed to achieve major success. The lack of stable roles created financial pressure and personal insecurity. This transition from child star to adult actress proved difficult. Without the structure of the show and without Landon's guidance, Melissa entered a period of uncertainty. Fame had arrived early in her life, but stability remained difficult to find. Addiction, health struggles, and financial problems, 1980s to present. During the 1980s, The personal life of Melissa Gilbert became increasingly unstable. The pressure of early fame, combined with unresolved family trauma, began to affect her daily behavior. By her late teens and early 20s, alcohol had become a regular part of her life. Melissa later admitted that her drinking gradually moved from social use to dependency. She also experimented with drugs during that period, in interviews and in her memoir, Prairie. She described the period as a time when she had lost control. Her decisions often placed her in dangerous situations. The addiction did not develop overnight. It grew over several years as she struggled with emotional instability and career uncertainty after Little House on the Prairie ended. Without the structured routine of the show, her lifestyle became less predictable. Several incidents during the late 1980s and early 1990s illustrated how serious the problem had become. Melissa often attended parties connected to the Hollywood entertainment scene. Drinking frequently continued through the night. She later recalled waking up in unfamiliar places after heavy drinking, sometimes unable to remember the previous evening clearly. Eventually, Melissa began to recognize the long-term damage these habits were causing. During her second marriage, she made the decision to confront her addiction directly. She began attending recovery programs and worked toward sobriety. In later interviews, she explained that addiction had completely broken her sense of self at the time. However, confronting it forced her to address the deeper emotional problems connected to her childhood. The process required her to revisit memories about adoption, family conflict, and the death of her adoptive father. While she was dealing with addiction, Melissa also began facing serious health problems. Over the years, she developed chronic physical pain that affected her daily activities. The pain often appeared in her back and neck. It worsened after several injuries and surgeries. The constant discomfort gradually changed her lifestyle. Long filming schedules became more difficult. Travel and demanding acting roles created additional strain on her body. Eventually, Melissa began reconsidering her connection to the Hollywood industry. To improve her health, she chose to leave the traditional Hollywood environment and move to a quieter rural setting. The move allowed her to focus on recovery, family life, and physical healing. At the same time, Melissa experienced severe financial difficulties. After the success of Little House on the Prairie, she had earned significant income. However, inconsistent acting work, combined with high living expenses, gradually reduced her savings over the years. Large mortgages, taxes, and lifestyle costs created heavy debt. Melissa later described her financial situation during certain periods as nearly devastating. At times, she accepted acting jobs primarily to maintain financial stability. The combination of addiction recovery, chronic pain, and financial stress created constant pressure. Each problem affected the others. Physical pain increased emotional stress. Financial instability increased anxiety. Recovery from addiction requires long-term discipline. These overlapping struggles also complicated Melissa's personal relationships. Maintaining stable partnerships became difficult while managing health problems and career uncertainty. The tension would eventually play a major role in the collapse of several of her marriages, which became another major chapter in her life story. Broken marriages and personal loss, 1980s to 2011. During the 1980s, the personal life of Melissa Gilbert became closely tied to several high-profile relationships. As a young actress in Hollywood, she moved within the same social circles as rising actors and television stars. One of her early relationships was with Tom Cruise during the early years of his career. The relationship was brief and received public attention because both were young actors working in Hollywood at the time. After that relationship ended, Melissa later began dating Rob Lowe, who was also becoming a major Hollywood star in the 1980s. Her relationship with Rob Lowe became more serious. The two appeared together publicly and were considered a well-known young Hollywood couple. However, The relationship eventually ended during a difficult period. Melissa later revealed that she suffered a miscarriage shortly after the breakup. The loss deeply affected her emotionally and marked one of the most painful experiences of her early adult life. After several unstable relationships, Melissa began searching for a more permanent form of stability. In 1988, she married actor and producer Bo Brinkman. The marriage represented an attempt to create a traditional family structure after years of uncertainty. During the marriage, the couple had a son named Dakota for a period. Melissa focused on motherhood while continuing her acting career. However, the relationship soon began experiencing tension, professional pressures, financial stress, and personal differences gradually weakened the marriage. In 1992, after 4 years together, Melissa and Bo Brinkman divorced. The separation left Melissa raising their son largely on her own. Managing work responsibilities while caring for a young child created new challenges. The emotional stress of the divorce added to the instability already present in her life. A few years later, Melissa entered another serious relationship. In 1995, she married actor Bruce Boxleitner. The couple built a blended family that included Dakota and Bruce's children from a previous marriage. In the same year, Melissa gave birth to their son, Michael. She named him after Michael Landon, her former mentor and father figure from Little House on the Prairie. The decision reflected the deep emotional influence Landon had on her life. For many years, the marriage appeared stable. Melissa and Bruce remained together for 16 years, one of the longest relationships in her life. During that period, Melissa continued acting in television films and also worked in theater and voice projects. However, maintaining balance between career demands, family responsibilities, and personal struggles proved difficult. Over time, the relationship experienced growing tension. By the late 2000s, the marriage had begun to deteriorate. In 2011, Melissa Gilbert and Bruce Boxleitner officially divorced after 16 years together. The separation had a powerful emotional impact on Melissa. She later described feeling mentally overwhelmed by the breakup during that period. Her alcohol use increased again as she struggled to process the end of another long relationship. Looking back on these years, Melissa recognized a repeating pattern. Each relationship began with the hope of creating stability and emotional security, but many eventually collapsed under pressure from personal struggles, career demands, and unresolved trauma. In her memoir, Prairie, she described her marriages as painful lessons that forced her to confront deeper issues in her life. The repeated breakdown of these relationships affected not only her own emotional stability, but also the environment in which her children were growing up. By the early 2000s, Melissa had already experienced multiple public relationships, 2 divorces, and several deeply personal losses. Yet another unexpected chapter would soon emerge in her life, bringing both new hope and new controversy. Recent scandal and continuing personal tragedy, 2013 to 2026, after 2 difficult divorces. Melissa Gilbert entered a new chapter in her personal life. In April 2013, she married actor and director Timothy Busfield. The wedding took place in a small, private ceremony attended by close friends and family members. For Melissa, the marriage represented a new attempt to build stability after decades of emotional turmoil. Busfield was known for his work in television and film, including roles in several American drama series. The couple combined their families and eventually settled in a quieter environment away from the center of Hollywood. Melissa later moved with Busfield to Michigan, where they focused on a slower lifestyle and community involvement. For several years, the marriage appeared stable. Melissa often spoke publicly about finding peace later in life. Interviews during the mid-2000s described her daily life as more balanced than in earlier decades. However, the situation changed dramatically in 2026 when a major scandal emerged involving Timothy Busfield. Authorities in New Mexico issued an arrest warrant connected to alleged incidents that reportedly occurred during the production of the television series The Cleaning Lady between 2022 and 2024, according to the allegations. Busfield was accused of inappropriate sexual conduct involving two underage twin boys connected to the production environment. Legal documents listed 2 counts related to sexual abuse of minors and 1 additional count connected to child abuse allegations. The accusations immediately attracted national media attention because of Busfield's public career and his marriage to Melissa Gilbert. News coverage spread rapidly across entertainment media and legal reporting outlets. Melissa Gilbert responded publicly soon after the allegations became known. In a written statement, she described feeling deeply shocked by the situation. She said she was shocked, heartbroken, and trying to understand the weight of these accusations. She also emphasized that the legal process should prioritize the protection and rights of potential victims. The scandal created a difficult public situation for Melissa. Although the accusations were directed at her husband, media attention quickly connected her name to the controversy. Interviews, social media discussions, and news reports frequently mentioned the couple together. For Melissa, the situation echoed earlier patterns in her life, moments when personal crisis became public. Throughout her career, she had repeatedly faced events that exposed private pain to national attention. The 2026 scandal added another chapter to that history. The emotional impact also extended to her family. Public controversy placed pressure on personal relationships and forced Melissa to navigate legal developments while maintaining privacy for those close to her. By this stage in her life, Melissa had already endured decades of personal loss, addiction recovery, financial stress, and broken relationships. The allegations surrounding her husband introduced yet another unexpected challenge. Once again, the actress, who had grown up in front of television audiences, found her private life becoming the subject of public scrutiny. Conclusion: the life of Melissa Gilbert shows how fragile fame can be. From the outside, she was known as the strong and optimistic Laura Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. For many viewers, that image represented innocence, family values, and childhood comfort. But behind that television character was a life shaped by repeated loss and personal struggle. Her story began with abandonment at birth and a difficult childhood marked by family instability. The suicide of her adoptive father during her early years created emotional wounds that followed her into adulthood. Fame arrived when she was still a child, but the success also removed much of her normal youth. As an adult, Melissa faced addiction, financial problems, and the collapse of multiple marriages. Each event created new emotional pressure. Public expectations continued, while her private life became increasingly complicated. The death of Michael Landon removed one of the most important mentors in her life. Later relationships brought both hope and disappointment, even in later years. Unexpected controversy continued to affect her personal life. The allegations involving her husband placed her once again in the center of public attention. Situations like these demonstrated how quickly private pain can become public discussion when a person lives under constant media visibility. Despite these difficulties, Melissa Gilbert has repeatedly chosen to speak openly about her experiences. Through her memoir, Prairie and later interviews, she described her struggles with addiction, family trauma, and emotional instability. Sharing those details required confronting painful memories, but it also allowed her to explain the reality behind the public image. By 2026, at the age of 61, Melissa lives a quieter life, away from the center of Hollywood. She and her family settled in rural Michigan, where daily life focuses more on health, family relationships, and personal recovery rather than constant public attention. Her story offers a clear lesson. Fame does not protect people from personal tragedy. Success in entertainment often hides complicated realities behind the screen. Yet Melissa Gilbert's life also shows that tragedy does not completely define a person. What matters more is how someone responds to those events, by acknowledging her past and continuing to rebuild her life. Melissa Gilbert transformed a series of painful experiences into a story of resilience. For many observers, her life remains a reminder of the darker side of child stardom in Hollywood. At the same time, it also shows that even after decades of personal struggle, the possibility of rebuilding and finding stability still exists.